Good morning everyone, my name is Ritesh and today we'll discuss the current affairs topic. And today's topic is developing tag to China. Now, today we'll discuss this whole concept of, this is related to WTO, World Trade Organization, and this tag is related to that also. That China recently got the developing tag. So what does it mean? We'll discuss this thing. So just an overview. First, we'll discuss why this particular thing, why this developing tag of China was in news recently. Then we'll discuss the key points related to that developing status and all, right? Then we'll discuss the China's case, what it's related. Then the benefits of developing tag status, and lastly the China's stand, what they are saying as per them, right? What are their views with related to that also, right? We'll discuss those things. So let us start with first that why this was in news, right? So now recently again, like I've said, China got the developing country status at WTO, World Trade Organization. Now earlier in 2019 itself, the South Korean government decided not to seek any special treatment as a developing country from future negotiations at WTO. Now why I'm mentioning this is because again China is as per the data and facts also, China is the most richest developing country in the world, right? And because they have utilized all these kind of things, resources, so instead of getting a developing country tag, they are getting benefit they are deriving so many kind of benefits, right? So in 2019 earlier, it was the case when South Korean government had the developing status tag, but they decided not to seek any special treatment as a developing country from future negotiations in WTO. Now, why I'm mentioning this again is because with developing country status, there are various benefits that have been attached to this particular thing, right? So if you are getting a developing tag status, there are so many benefits that will be there for you. For example, you can take longer time to fulfill some kind of demand, or you'll take longer time. For example, for example, I'll mention in my last video, I've mentioned that there's a developing country Kyoto Protocol, right? There's a Kyoto Protocol, then there's a Paris Agreement. The difference lies between them is that one says that there's a difference between developing and developed, and the other says they all are same and they all have the same aim or the same end goal, right? But one says that no, developing countries should get more time than developed country itself, because the country is already being developed. So why give them more time, right? So give more time to developing countries that need more kind of support, right? So it's kind of a support. As a tag, you are giving them a support, right? So as a world organization, WTO is giving support to developing countries, right? So these kind of things that are involved, that's why I mentioned South Korean government too, that even if they get the tag, but they're not actually utilizing all those benefits there. They are saying that okay, we don't want any special treatment as a developing country from future negotiations in WTO, right? So that is why it was in news, because China got the recently developing country status, right? Now let's talk about the key points related with this news, the points that you have to remember. Now, as per WTO, World Trade Organization does not define developed and developing countries. These countries itself define them. These member countries that in WTO, there are various member countries are there. So these member countries are free to decide and announce themselves as a developing country or as a developed country, right? So it is upon the members itself that they are free to decide and announce themselves in in WTO if they are developed country or developing country, right? So for example, for getting benefits, many countries tag themselves as a developing country itself, so that they can take benefits from there. right? Now the problem is there. The WTO, World Trade Organization, lacks a proper definition of developing nation, although 2/3 of its 164 members classify themselves as developing, right? So again, there are 164 members in WTO, right? And in 164 members, 2/3 members are already classified themselves as a developing country. So you can guess how and what kind of benefit they are deriving from WTO in the negotiations that have happened in WTO. What kind of benefits they will get derived, right? So every country try to announce themselves as a developing country. Why? Again, the point lies here that they'll get benefit because of that. So that is why they announce themselves. And because WTO does not have a specific definition of a developed countries and a developing country, these member countries are exploiting these things. Now again, this is an issue. Now what will be the solution? Solution will be that the WTO classification. WTO must classify these countries as developed and developing country, and WTO must give a proper specific definition with related to the developing countries and developed countries, right? Next, let's discuss the China's case, right? So what is the what is the China's case related in this scenario, right? So there are a number of nations which have called on China to either refrain from seeking benefits available to developing countries or forgo its classification. Now, as China get the developing country status tag, now there are so many countries that call China to either be a developed country, be a developing country, right? They are saying that, okay, you have announced, decide yourself as a developing country, right? Now, as a developing country, you will have so many benefits. You will get so many benefits from WTO. Now, don't seek those benefits. Why? Because you are actually the richest developing country in the world, and you don't need any kind of support like so many countries are there, right? So they are saying that, okay, as a member country, you are free to decide that you are developed or a developing country, but the benefit seeking is one such thing that you can stop, right? So China, so the countries are saying that stop taking benefits from WTO as a developing country tag, right? Then some countries are saying that, okay, they are taking benefits, but some others are saying that don't classify yourself as a developing country. You are already a developed country, so classify yourself as a developed country, not a developing country, right? So this is the arguments of some nations, right? Then China's unfair trade practices. This is also a serious concern. See, while getting a developing state tax status, they are getting benefits from WTO, and China has a monopoly on so many products and devices, and the unfair trade practices are there in China. China has so many unfair trade practices in the market, right? So this becomes again a serious scenario, right, with related to that. Even because they are having unfair trade practices, right? And secondly, they are also getting benefits from WTO as a developing country, right? And even when they are beyond that, right, they are the richest ones. So why are you taking benefits, or why are you even classifying yourself as a developing country, right? Then World Bank classifies countries into 4 income groups, right? So again, this is a fact. So just remember this thing, that World Bank classifies into 4 income groups. First one is low, second one is lower middle, third one is upper middle, and fourth one is high income countries. Now in its latest classification of 2020-2021, World Bank has classified India as a lower middle income country, right? So according to World Bank, there are four classification of income as per the income, right? First one is low, then lower middle, then upper middle, and then high income countries. And as per the recent classification, India is termed as lower middle income country, right? Then again, now we'll talk about the benefits that has been given to the developing tax status. What will be the benefit? Why there is so much hue and cry behind the China status at WTO, right? I'll explain this thing to you in this slide. Now, first is that they can, as a developing tax status, they can grant developing countries longer time frames to implement the agreements and even commitments. First one is the longer time frame. Just remember, longer time frame. Now, as a developing countries, you will the WTO, even the treaty and the commitments will take more time, right? You will have more time to complete the whole process. You will take more time to complete the commitments that have been made. So there's a upper hand for a developing country to fulfill their requirements, right? First one is longer time frame. Second, special and differentiated treatment. Now, this special and differentiated treatment allows developing and poor countries certain benefits, including longer transition periods for implementing commitments. This is a special differentiated treatment. Just remember this, special and differentiated treatment. Now, then this is increased trading opportunities for developing countries. Provisions requiring all WTO members to safeguard a trade interest of developing countries. Now, as per WTO, right? So all the members that are members of WTO, they have to safeguard the trade interest of the developing countries, right? So if a developing countries is in some kind of trade, they have a huge and ample kind of opportunities over there. Why? Because all the member countries will safeguard their trade interests. Why? Because again, they are developing countries. That is why all the member countries will safeguard the trade interest of that particular country, right? Then they set more lenient targets for developing nations and grant them more time to achieve these targets compared to developed ones. Right? Again, the time frame and the longer time frame and the commitment issues are there. The safeguard issues were there, that if you are a developing country, you will have more leverage over developed countries. Why? Because you don't. Why? Because developed countries don't need as much, because they are already in developed stage. And now, because you are developing, you are in developing stage. You need more time frame, more backing up of countries. So that is why WTO is providing all these things to developing countries, right? Then the classification also allows other countries to offer preferential treatment as well, right? So again, this classification allows other countries to offer preferential treatment to some other countries as well, right? So again, these kinds of benefits are there for developing country. So if you are if a country is a developing country as per WTO, as per the WTO standard, if a country announce themselves as a developing country, then they can avail all these kind of benefits, right? Now, next point is China's stand. This is the last one. This is a small topic. So now, what is the China stand over the whole issue, right? So China said that China has consistently maintained that it is the world's largest developing economy, but has recently indicated that it may be willing to forego many benefits of being a developed country. Again, of developing country, sorry. Again, just like I mentioned the South Korean thing in 2019, that they have forgo all the classifications and all those things. China also said that in the recent years, they will forgo many benefits of being a developing country under WTO. Then it has reportedly informed that the country may forego all exemptions available to developing countries in negotiations aimed at cutting fishing subsidies to curb overfishing. Now, China's stand is also very clear. They announce themselves as a developing countries, but they are okay with the fact that they'll forego all these benefits that they can derive from WTO negotiations, right? So they will they'll forgo all these qualifications, all these benefits of being a developed country, right? So China's stand is also very clear, right? So this was all about this whole topic, the developing tag to China, right? So thank you so much for this topic.